Hello and welcome back to another tutorial. In this tutorial we're going to be looking at how we can increase the surface noise, and we're going to be having a look at our sharp highlight layer. So in the last video we looked at adding some damage. I've kind of added a few little additional little items of damage here. I've redone some of the things that were over here, and hopefully you've now got something that looks infinitely better than this. Now one of the things that you've probably noticed is that the surface texture here is very soft. There's no detail inside any of these stones. It's all pretty much just grayscale. Now we're going to use something called difference clouds to add some detail in here, and this is going to link very nicely with the sharp highlights. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new layer, and I'm going to add this just above the background layer. And if I click new layer here, I'm going to call this the cloud layer. And this is a really useful layer. Now the first thing we need to do is we need to just paste a color in here. It can be any color, it can be black, it can be white, it doesn't matter. Once we've done that, we can come to filter, we can come to render, and we can come to difference clouds. And this doesn't look particularly interesting or ambitious to begin with, but if we come up to filter again and we press difference clouds at the top here, or we can use the hotkey Alt, Control and F, and we do this several times, you'll notice that after a little bit of time we end up creating what looks like these kind of little veins, almost these little islands. Now this tiles, so you don't need to worry. This isn't going to ruin your texture. This will tile, and all we're looking for, I'm just going to continue doing this until I end up with something that looks nice and even. Now this is a good example. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to use a layer blending technique to make this fit a little bit more appropriately. Now if we come over to the layer here, the opacity is 100%. We're going to need to adjust that. But in the meantime what we can do is we can change this normal blend mode to multiply. You can see here that that changes the way that this interacts with the layer beneath it. And what we can do is we can just begin to reduce some of that opacity. Now as I do this, you can see that we end up with something that looks maybe a little bit more stone textury. But this isn't the end of that particular journey. Let's have a look at sharp highlights. Now sharp highlights we're going to use to really bring out some of this detail, and rather than bore you with the details, I'm just going to show you how we can do it. Now the sharp highlight layer's got a very specific brush setting. We don't need scattering. We want a 1 pixel brush. We want it to be 100% hard, and I'm going to have an opacity rating of about 50%. We want this to be quite sharp. Now the first thing that the sharp highlight layer will allow us to do is it will allow us to bring out some of these details. Now where we've got, I'm just going to use this square in the middle, I'm not going to go through and do the whole material, but let's just look at this square in the middle. Where we've got some of these contrasting areas here, we've got this white area and this dark area. And what I want to do is I just want to, with my pen here, just add, with a white colour, just add a little nick there. Nothing special, just want to add a little highlight. You notice I'm not following the shape all the way down. What I am doing is I'm just creating a little bit of highlight detail. Now bear with this because it doesn't immediately look like it's having any effect whatsoever. It looks like you're just painting white marks on the surface, but I'm going to continue adding a few here. I'm going to spend maybe a minute or so just adding a few of these in, just in random areas here. And this is really going to create a cool effect. It's really going to allow this cloud layer to pop. I've got this big area in the middle here of cloud, and I'm going to again just kind of do exactly the same thing. I'm just going to take areas where there are little areas of contrast, and just on the border of those areas I'm going to add these little pen tricks. This is why having a tablet is so useful, because you can really adjust your pen pressure accordingly, and I'm hardly pressing at all here. I really am just letting the nib do the work. I'm not pressing down at all. So I'm going to continue on here, just adding some of these details in, some of the smaller details as well, like so. I've got another little area down here I just want to cover before I zoom out and show you really what's going on. Now if I zoom out here, what you're going to see is you're going to see this area really come to life. So we've really created this idea of depth here, and we can do this to every single one of these stones, and that is what I would suggest that you do as well. Now the other utility for this particular sharp highlight layer is really sharpening up some of these highlights. Now I'm not going to pick on this particular block here, I'm going to pick on this one up here. This has got some nice kind of layered damage, but we're not really capitalizing on this. I'm going to pick one or two of these bricks to kind of demonstrate this. And the first use for this is to really highlight those sharp edges. Now currently all of these edges look pretty soft, but stone tends to be quite hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, over the highlights we've already done, I'm just going to add in some of these sharp highlights. And when I get to the corners here and we've got the light meeting the dark, I'm actually going to draw the sharp highlight into what is this dark section here. I'm going to continue this on, and I'm just going to overlap a lot of the areas that we've already worked on. Don't have to press particularly hard, but make sure that they're noticeable. And I'm really going to go over everything here. I'm really going to add that sharp detail. And what this is going to do is it's going to kind of almost act as like an anti-aliasing. It's going to sharpen up all of the highlights and all of the shadows that we've added. And if I zoom out, you'll really see a difference between this one here and this one here. And I'm not finished yet. I'm going to continue adding in these little details. Don't be afraid as well to cut the corners. So where I've got this corner here, maybe I just want to add another little chip here. And this is when we really get the opportunity to bring that texture to life. So let's pick on something down. Let's pick on this one actually. This little rock here has got some interesting detail. This has got quite a large crack in it. So let's just add some of this highlight layer here. So I'm doing exactly the same thing. I'm going over here where the kind of the stone goes in. I'm just highlighting that, following this in. Now when we get to here, I'm just going to highlight. This is a nice sharp edge. Do the same over here. Nice sharp edge. I'm just going to push this into that darkness there, really kind of draw the player's eye into these areas. And you notice I'm quite close here, I'm in quite close. Just capitalizing on some of this cloud data again. Don't be afraid to do these things at the same time. It can be really time consuming to add a lot of this stuff in, so really kind of go mad with that detail. I'm just going to again overlap some of the detail here, maybe even just highlight that inner face a little bit. And as I zoom out, you're going to really see that sharpened up the brick. We do another one down here. Absolutely exactly the same technique. Nothing special. All I'm doing is I'm just adding in some more of this detail. Okay, excellent. Now that's it for the highlights and the shadows. I'm going to let you explore on as kind of as much as you like. If you have any questions about any of these sharp highlights, then please let me know in the comments down below. I'm only too happy to answer any questions. One of the things I want to cover in this video is how we can add some color to this. Okay, now color is super important when it comes to textures. Color and shade are two of the most important things when it comes to producing a material that not only looks good but has function and it has purpose and it has a place in a level. We're not going to really focus too much on the purpose of the color, but we are just going to add some really funky colors to this. I'm getting a bit carried away with these sharp highlights, but this is quite therapeutic. I don't know if you've noticed that, but I find it very therapeutic. Now I will finish this and I will post the finished example so you kind of get a little bit of an idea of what it would look like, but it kind of looks a little bit like this, but just much sharper. And because this brush is so sharp, really can add in some subtle details we wouldn't have been able to previously, certainly in terms of adding in the depth of the bricks that we didn't have originally, or that we've now got. Even if you pick on just something like this, something really similar like this, just draw that in there, and if I zoom out you can kind of really see that shading kind of dominates the silhouette of that particular brick, so you can really create some really nice effects. And I know that I said I was going to do colouring, and I promise I am, but I'm just going to spend another couple of seconds just really fucking about with this because it is so interesting to get some kind of cool little details. coming out here. This will be the last one, I promise. I've taken up too much of your time already. Okay, excellent. Nope, I've got a little detail down here. Fine, I've stopped. There's a little split here. I just want to bring up here. You guys, I'm so sorry. Okay, right, I'm done. I promise, I'm done. So let's add color. Now we've already got a color layer here. This was added right back at the beginning. And again, we have looked a little bit at color in the introduction to hand painting material, but it's exactly the same technique. You'll notice that, like with this, we've got a multiply layer. The color is going to be overlay, and this just allows us to paint any kind of color that we want on top of this, no matter how ridiculous. I'm going to use this blue as an example, and I'm just going to paint over one of these boxes here. And you can kind of see that no matter what we paint over the top of this, it's going to come out and look either rubbish or awesome. And we can change the opacity of this layer. We can add other colors. And you can spend as much time adding these as you like. But that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you learned something, and I look forward to showing you something cool again soon. Thank you.